was always America. I came to America with empty pockets, but full of dreams. And I knew that in this land of opportunity, I could build the future that I envisioned. I could become whatever I wanted. I could make my dreams come true. But at every step of the way, they told me it was impossible. That my dream was just too big. But I had a plan. When I wanted to become a bodybuilding champion, they said it was an American sport. And I would be all alone with nothing. When I wanted to become an actor, they said that my body was too muscular and too big, that my accent was just too hideous, and that my name was just too long. So I made up my own rules. I became a millionaire way before I swung the sword in Conan the Barbarian. I broke records. I even worked harder and broke barriers. It was never easy. And I did not rest until my dreams became reality. And then I gave back and served this land that gave me everything and became governor of one of the largest economies in the world.
Hi, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The championships, the business, the movies, the politics. It was not luck. It was all part of the plan.
I always wanted to be an inspiration for people. I do want to set an example, of course. I want to inspire you to work out, keep yourself fit, lay off junk food, create a vision, and use your will to accomplish it. I want you to throw away the mirror, for instance, and not always look at yourself, but get involved in public service and give something back to the community. I want you to protect the environment rather than to mess it up. I'm very happy to take the torch and to be a role model for others, because I've always had great role models myself, like Reg Park, or Muhammad Ali, Sergeant Shriver, Milton Berle, Nelson Mandela, Milton Friedman. They're all great role models. I thought of myself as special and unique, and not like the average Hans and Franz. Being outrageous is a way to succeed. How I dressed, how I talked, I always would look for my own way of doing things. Of course, being different was right up my alley. I didn't have the same body as everyone else, and I didn't have the same car as everyone else. I always wanted to be different. But life is much richer when we embrace the multitudes that we all contain, even if we aren't consistent and what we do doesn't always make sense even to us. When I talk to graduating classes, I always tell a brief version of the story of my life and try to offer lessons everyone can use, like have a vision, trust yourself, break some rules, ignore the naysayers, don't be afraid to fail. Woven through the stories in this memoir are some of the principles of success that have worked for me. Turning liabilities into assets. When I wanted to star in movies, the Hollywood agents and the producers, they all talked to me and said, forget about it. My body and my name and my accent were all too weird. They said a body like that will be used maybe in Hercules movies, and people would be scared with the German accent and the name. I mean, no one would be able to pronounce it, it's too long. Forget all that. Instead of listening, I worked hard on my accent and on my acting, as hard as I've worked in bodybuilding, to transform myself into a leading man. With Conan the Barbarian and the Terminator, I broke through. the things that the agent said would be a detriment and make it impossible for me to get a job or becoming a leading man, all of a sudden made me an action hero. Or as John Milius said, he was the director of Conan the Barbarian, if we didn't have Schwarzenegger, we would have to build one. When someone tells you no, you should hear yes. Impossible was a word that I love to ignore. The only way to make the possible possible is to try the impossible. If you fail, so what? That's what everyone expects. But if you succeed, you make the world a much better place. Never follow the crowd. Go where it's empty. People apply this kind of common sense all the time, and yet they forget when it comes to their careers. When every immigrant, for instance, was talking about saving up to buy a house, I bought an apartment building instead. When every inspiring actor was trying to land pit parts in movies, I held out to be a leading man. When every politician tried to work his or her way up the ladder from the local office, I went straight for the governorship. I think it's easier to stand out when you aim straight for the top. Figure out what the odds are to have an Austrian farm boy come over to the United States and win all the bodybuilding championships and became the greatest bodybuilder of all times. And then become also the highest paid actor of all times with $30 million. And then as a Republican marry into the Kennedy family. And then on top of that, out of nowhere become governor of the great state of California and become kind of the second immigrant governor in the history of California. Writing out my goals became second nature, and so did the conviction that there are no shortcuts.
I didn't want to just be a bodybuilding champion. I wanted to be the best bodybuilder of all times. Dig deep down and ask yourselves, who do you want to be? Spent a lot of time by myself so I could figure out and listen to what is inside my heart and inside my head. Imagine you're 15 years old and you're in Austria and you say to the people, I want to be the bodybuilding champion of the world. I had this fire in the belly and I knew that the United States was where I could really succeed. I knew that this was where I could continue my bodybuilding career and start acting also. I was told to my face, you're nothing but a giant muscle. You can't act. You have no future and you have an accent that is laughable. And with your name, Schwarzen Schnitzel or whatever your name is, they say, well, forget about that, and they laughed. And there the director said if we wouldn't have Schwarzenegger, we would have to build one. And then when I did Terminator, I'll be back. One of the most famous lines in a movie history, all because of my crazy accent. It just shows you never listen that you can't do something. Don't be afraid to fail. You should not be afraid of failure. That's just part of life. Anything and everything can be done if you can visualize it and if you believe in yourself. So never give up and never be afraid of failure, because otherwise you box yourself in and you limit yourself. You're going to find the naysayers in every turn that you make. Don't listen. If I would have listened to the naysayers, I would still be in the Austrian Alps yodeling. Just visualize your goal, know exactly where you want to go. There's absolutely no way around hard work. No pain, no gain. When you're out there partying, horsing around, someone out there at the same time is working hard. Someone is getting smarter and someone is winning. Just remember that. You can't climb that ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. To lead a truly full life, we must leave the world a better place than you found it. We must serve a cause that is greater than ourselves. Tear down that mirror that makes you always look at yourself. And you will see the millions and millions of people that need your help. Don't just take. Give something back.
In one word only, how did a small town boy from Austria become one of the most famous people on earth?
Arnold was going to be something very successful in his life. He's so charming and he's so smart. You just knew it. You just knew he had a very clear sense of how to apply himself.
Really a most unique human being. He came from a very, very humble origin. He has, again, emerged as one of the leading celebrity figures in the world. He did it by dint of his own personal effort.
I think he takes it very seriously, and he works hard at it. But Arnold works hard at almost everything that he does, and I think whatever he, set his mind to, I think he could be successful in.
I think that you have to overcome obstacles every day. I mean, the day begins by just getting rid of obstacles. That's what it's all about in life. It was not easy for me to come to this country, to start all over. It was not easy for me to go from the fitness and from the bodybuilding into acting. And things are not easy, but the upside is always so great when you make it. But you have to work on it. It doesn't happen overnight.
So they said they have a long name and a difficult name to pronounce, so I should change my name. Then they said I had a strange accent, I should change that. And
you cannot have any kind of an outside negative force coming in and affect you. Okay, let's say before a contest, if I get emotionally involved with a girl, that can have a negative effect on my mind and therefore destroy my workout. So therefore I have to cut my emotions off and be kind of cold in a way.
Growing up, you had no plumbing. I don't think you had a toilet, no shower. You had heat only from the stove. What do you think not having much growing up taught you?
Growing up like the way I did, poor, and with none of those luxuries. All of those things, made you much more hungry for success. So when you grow up like that, you don't shy away from anything. I mean, working to me was kind of like never, oh my God, I have to work. I loved working. If it was in bodybuilding or making an endorsement here or an investment in an apartment building or starting a mail order business or getting into movies or doing this or doing that, it's like, wow, this is really amazing. But it took a lot of hard work, but I never shied away from work. And I think that my hunger and my desire and my fire in the belly, and that nothing could stop me, I think that comes from growing up the way I did. It doesn't matter who it is. The most successful person in the world can tell you honestly that they also had a tremendous amount of failures. It's not always just success. The key thing is that we learn from the failures actually more than from our successes. It doesn't matter if you talk about the best basketball player. I remember Michael Jordan one time said in an interview that he missed 9,000 shots. Here he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest basketball player in the world. So yes, you miss. Everyone has failures. So the key thing is that you learn from those failures and you move on. I had my failures in bodybuilding. I lost bodybuilding competitions. Most people only know my victories, which were a lot, but I've also lost. I lost in weightlifting. I lost in powerlifting. I embarrassed myself many times trying to lift the 500 pounds on a bench press in front of 2,000 people in a beer hall in Germany, and I failed and it crashed on my chest and I couldn't make it, but eventually I did make it. I lost, I had failures in the movie business. I remember I had a lot of movies that went through the roof, but then there were movies that went right in the toilet that were not as successful. Books that I came out with that won a New York Times bestseller list, and then others that didn't, live up to the expectations and failed. I have failures also, I remember, in my personal life. And I learned from that, and then you move on again. What is important is that you get up. When you fall, the winner always gets up, and the loser stays down. That's what's the difference. So to me, the important thing is always that when you fail on something, get up, you dust yourself off, and you move on, and have again a great vision of which direction you want to go. Pick another goal and keep moving forward. You have to have tunnel vision, and you got to have blinders on and not to see anything that is on the left and on the right side, and just really focus. And what they call in golf and in tennis and all these ball sports, keep your eye on the ball. And when you do that, and when you focus that much on something, then of course you are not being able to enjoy all of the things that life has to offer, because you're so focused on this one thing. You have to focus on the thing that you really want to be the best at, and that's what I did. And I don't regret that at all, because you cannot be good in everything, and you cannot do everything and at the same time be a champion in one thing. There is no such thing. So I decided I wanted to be a champion. I decided that I wanted to go all out. Giving back and recognizing that every one of us needs help. I got plenty of help to be where I am today. There's no such thing as a self-made man, as I always say. There's people that helped me to be where I am today. So it is up to me now to inspire other people, to help them, and to go and reach out and to help. And I just love giving back, where you don't think about what is in it for me, but, how can I help? Part of being successful is to give also something back. The more you create resistance to the person, the stronger that person gets, and the stronger your character gets, and the more you can endure.
Det er klart, but Arnold has done. You know what I mean? Okay.
One word only. No. How did a small town boy from Austria become one of the most famous people on earth?
Dream. I was poor because I didn't have anything. I had no money, I had no things, we had no TV, we had no refrigerator, we had nothing as kids. But I was rich because I had a dream.
What is the secret to success? But before I start, I just wanted to say these are my rules, and I think that they can apply to anyone, but that is for you to decide, because not everyone is the same. There's some people that just like to kick back and coast through life, and others want to be very intense and want to be number one and want to be successful. And that's like me. I always wanted to be very intense. I always wanted to be number one. I took it very seriously in my career. So this was the same when I started with bodybuilding. I didn't want to just be a bodybuilding champion. I wanted to be the best bodybuilder of all times. The same was in the movies. I didn't want to just be a movie star. I wanted to be a great movie star. That's the highest paid movie star and have above the title billing. And so this intensity always paid off for me. This commitment always paid off for me. So here are some of the rules. The first rule is trust yourself.
What I mean by that is so many young people are getting so much advice from their parents and from the teachers and from everyone. But what is most important is that you have to dig deep down and ask yourselves, who do you want to be? Not what, but who. And I'm talking about not what your parents and teachers want you to be, but you. I'm talking about figuring out for yourselves what makes you happy, no matter how crazy it may sound to the people. I was lucky growing up because I did not have the television, or I didn't have telephones, I didn't have the computers and the iPods. And of course Twitter was then something that birds did outside the window. But I didn't have all the distractions and all this. I spent a lot of time by myself so I could figure out and listen to what is inside my heart and inside my head. And I recognized very quickly that inside my head and heart were a burning desire to leave my small village in Austria. Not that there was something wrong with us, Austria, it's a beautiful country, but I wanted to leave that little place and I wanted to be part of something big. The United States of America, a powerful nation, the place where dreams can come true. I knew when I come over here I can realize my dreams. And I decided that the best way for me to come to America was to become a bodybuilding champion, because I knew that was my ticket. The instant that I saw a magazine cover of my idol, Reg Park. He was Mr. Universe, he was starring in Hercules movies, he looked strong and powerful, he was so confident. So when I found out he got that way, I became obsessed and I went home and I said to my family, I want to be a bodybuilding champion. Now you can imagine how that went over in my home in Austria. My parents, they couldn't believe it. They would have been just happy if I would have become a police officer like my father, or married someone like Heidi, who had a bunch of kids and ran around like the Van Trapp family in Sound of Music. That's what my family had in mind for me, but something else burned inside me. Something burned inside me. I wanted to be different. I was determined to be unique. I was driven to think big and to dream big. Everyone else thought that I was crazy. My friend said, if you want to be a champion in a sport, why don't you go and become a bicycle champion or a skiing champion or a soccer champion? Those are the Austrian sports. But I didn't care. I wanted to be a bodybuilding champion and use that to come to America and use that to go into the movies and make millions of dollars. So, of course, for extra motivation, I read books on strongmen and on bodybuilding and looked at magazines. And one of the things I did was I decorated my bedroom window, my bedroom wall. Right next to my bed, there was this big wall that I decorated all with pictures. I hung up pictures of strongmen and bodybuilders and wrestlers and boxers and so on. And I was so excited about this great decoration that I took my mother to the bedroom and I showed her. And she shook her head. She was absolutely in shock. And tears started running down her eyes. And she called the doctor. She called our house doctor. And she brought him in and she explained to him, there's something wrong here. She said, she looked at the wall with the doctor and she says, where did I go wrong? I mean, all of Arnold's friends have pictures on the wall of girls. And Arnold has all these men, but it's not just men, they're half naked. And they're oiled up with baby oil. I mean, what is going on here? Where did I go wrong? So you can imagine, the doctor shook his head and he said, there's nothing wrong. At this age, you have idols and you go and have those. This is just quite normal. So this is rule number one. I wanted to become a champion. I was on a mission. So rule number one is, of course, trust yourself no matter how and what anyone else thinks. And of course, rule number two is break the rules. We have so many rules in life about everything. I say break the rules, not the law, but break the rules. My wife has a t-shirt. My wife has a t-shirt that says, well-behaved women rarely make history. Well, you know, I don't want to burst her bubble, but the same is true with men. It is impossible to be a maverick or a true original if you're too well-behaved and don't want to break the rules. You have to think outside the box. That's what I believe. After all, what is the point of being on this earth if all you want to do is be liked by everyone and avoid trouble? The only way that I ever got any place was by breaking some of the rules. After all, I remember that after I was finished with my bodybuilding career, I wanted to get into acting and I wanted to be a star in films. You can imagine what the agent said when I went to meet all those agents. Everyone had the same line that it can't be done. The rules are different here. It says, look at your body. You have this huge, monstrous body, overly developed, that doesn't fit into the movies.
You don't understand. This was 20 years ago, the Hercules movies. Now there's the little guys that are in. Dustin Hoffman, Woody Allen, Jack Nicholson, before he gained weight, of course, that is. But anyway, those are the guys that were in. And the agent also complained about my accent. He says, no one ever became a star with an accent like that, especially not with a German accent. And yes, I can imagine with your name, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or whatever the name is, on a billboard. Yeah, that's going to draw a lot of tickets and sell a lot of tickets. Yeah, right. So this is the kind of negative attitude they had, but I didn't listen to those rules. Even though they were very nice and they said, look, we can get you some bit parts. We can get you to be, playing a wrestler or a bouncer. Oh, maybe with your German accent, we can get you to be a Nazi officer in Hogan's Heroes or something like that. But, I didn't listen to orders. These were their rules, not my rules. I was convinced I could do it, that if I worked as hard as I did in bodybuilding, 5 hours a day, and I started getting to work, I started taking acting classes, took English classes, took speech classes, dialogue classes, accent removal classes I even took. I remember running around, a fine wine grows on a vine. See, because Germans had difficulties with the F and the W and the V. So fine wine grows on a vine. I know what some of you now say is I hope that Arnold got his money back. But let me tell you something. I had a good time doing those things and it really helped me. And finally I broke through. And I started getting the first parts in TV, Streets of San Francisco. Lucille Ball hired me. I made Pumping Iron, Stay Hungry, and then I got the big break in Conan the Barbarian. And there the director said, if we wouldn't have Schwarzenegger, we would have to build one. Now think about that. And then when I did Terminator, I'll be back. Became one of the most famous lines in a movie history, all because of my crazy accent. Now think about it, the things that the agent said will be totally a detriment and will be impossible for me to get a job, all of a sudden became an asset for me. All of those things, my accent, my body and everything. So it just shows you never listen to that you can't do something. And you have to work your way up, of course, run for something else first. I mean, it was the same when I ran for governor. The same lines that you have to work your way up, it can't be done. And then, of course, I ran for governor, and the rest, of course, is history. They said you have to start with a small job as mayor, and then as assemblyman, and then as lieutenant governor, and then as governor. And they said, that's the way it works in a political career. I said, I'm not interested in a political career. I want to be a public servant. I want to fix California's problems and bring people together and bring the parties together. So, like I said, I decided to run. I didn't pay attention to the rules, and I made it, and the rest is history. Which of course brings me to rule number 3. Don't be afraid to fail. Anything I've ever attempted, I was always willing to fail. In the movie business, I remember that you pick scripts. Many times you think this is a winning script, but then of course you find out later when you do the movie that it didn't work, and the movie goes in the toilet. Now we have seen my movies, Red Sonja, Hercules in New York, Last Action Heroes, those movies went in the toilet. But that's okay, because at the same time I made movies like Terminator and Conan and True Lies and Predator and Twins that went through the roof. So you can't always win, but don't be afraid of making decisions. You can't be paralyzed by fear or failure, or you will never push yourself. You keep pushing because you believe in yourself and in your vision. And you know that it is the right thing to do, and success will come. So don't be afraid to fail. Which brings me to rule number 4, which is don't listen to the naysayers. I mean, how many times have you heard that you can't do this and you can't do that and it has never been done before? Just imagine if Bill Gates had quit when people say it can't be done. I hear this all the time. As a matter of fact, I love it when someone says that no one has ever done this before, because then when I do it, that means that I'm the first one that has done it. So pay no attention to the people that say it can't be done. I remember my mother-in-law, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, when she started Special Olympics in 1968, people said that it would not work. The experts, the doctors that specialized in mental disabilities and mental retardation said it can't be done. You can't bring people out of the institution. You can't make them participate in sports, in jumping, in swimming, and in running. They will hurt themselves. They will hurt each other. They will drown in the pool. Well, let me tell you something. Now, 40 years later, Special Olympics is one of the greatest organizations in 164 countries, dedicated to people with mental disabilities and with intellectual challenge. And she did not take no for an answer. And the same is when you look at Barack Obama. I mean, imagine if he would have listened. If he would have listened to the naysayers, he would have never run for president. People said it couldn't be done, that he couldn't get elected, that he couldn't beat Hillary Clinton, that he would never win the general election. But he followed his own heart, he didn't listen to the "you can't," and he changed the course of American history. So over and over you see that if I would have listened to the naysayers, I would still be in the Austrian Alps yodeling. I would never have come to America. I would have never met my wonderful wife, Maria Shriver. I would have never had the wonderful 4 kids. I would have never done Terminator, and I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today as governor of the greatest state of the greatest country in the world. So I never listened that you can't. I always listened to myself and said, yes, you can. And that brings me to rule number 5, which is the most important rule of all. Work your butt off. You never want to fail because you didn't work hard enough. I never wanted to lose a competition or lose an election because I didn't work hard enough. I always believed leaving no stone unturned. Muhammad Ali, one of my great heroes, had a great line in the 70s when he was asked, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, I don't count my sit-ups. I only start counting when it starts hurting. When I feel pain, that's when I start counting, because that's when it really counts. That's what makes you a champion. And that's the way it is with everything. No pain, no gain. So many of those lessons that I apply in life, I've learned from sports, let me tell you, and especially that one. And let me tell you, it is important to have fun in life, of course, but when you're out there partying, horsing around, someone out there at the same time is working hard. Someone is getting smarter and someone is winning. Just remember that. Now, if you want to coast through life, don't pay any attention to any of those rules. But if you want to win, there's absolutely no way around hard work. None of my rules, by the way, of success will work unless you do. I've always figured out that there's 24 hours a day. You sleep 6 hours, and you have 18 hours left. Now, I know there's some of you out there now and says, well, wait a minute, I sleep 8 hours or 9 hours. Well, then just sleep faster, I would recommend. Because you only need to sleep 6 hours, then you have 18 hours left, and there's a lot of things you can accomplish. As a matter of fact, Ted Turner used to say always, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. And of course, all you know, you know already those things, because otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here today. Just remember, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in a pocket. And that takes me to rule number 6, which is a very important rule. It's about giving back. Whatever path that you take in your lives, you must always find time to give something back. Something back to your community, give something back to your state or to your country. And my father-in-law, Sergeant Shriver, who is a great American, truly great American, who started the Peace Corps, the Job Corps, legal aid to the poor. He said at Yale University to the students at a commencement speech, tear down that mirror. Tear down that mirror that makes you always look at yourself. And you will be able to look beyond that mirror, and you will see the millions of people that need your help. And let me tell you something, reaching out and helping people will bring you more satisfaction than anything else you've ever done. As a matter of fact, today, after having worked for Special Olympics and have started after-school programs, have promoted fitness, and now with my job as governor, I can tell you, playing a game of chess with an 8-year-old kid in an inner-city school is far more exciting for me than walking down another red carpet of a movie premiere. So let me tell you, as you prepare to go off into the world, remember those 6 rules. Trust yourself, break some rules, don't be afraid to fail, ignore the naysayers, work like hell, and give something back.